How you doing? My name's Josh. Just before I get into introducing myself too much, I think that I'll get into that in other videos. This is the first video journal. I've been kind of meaning to do this for quite some time. So I'm sitting down here in St. Louis. I'm downtown by the river. I'm in an old abandoned building on the Cotton Belt. It's Route 66. It's an old train station. It's been Vaco for years. We got different people that kind of call it home, I guess. I guess there's some riffraff in here now, but there's eyes on the situation, and it's being monitored. Let's just say everything around the city's monitored, and we'll get into more of that later, some future videos. But for now, I wanted to discuss the Piasa caves, which are over in Illinois, Alton, Illinois, to be exact. They're on the Mississippi. You know, I just recall the first time that I went by these caves. It was years ago. We saw them. They were, it was crazy. I remember looking over and seeing this huge freaking cave entrances, and you know, some monster painted up above them. And ever since then, I'm like, I just, super curious about what that was. And so they say that they're man-made, and I'm more on that. I'm more going on that train of thought. There's others that say that they're natural cave formations, and I'm going to prove, I guess, beyond a reasonable doubt for any thinking human being, that these are not natural formations.
The cave, you'll see the columns. They're all of similar size and similar diameter. The bays between them are all basically the same. You see some excavation, it looks like, happening on the bottom there. And then we'll take a look at the ceiling. That same circular vault is found through the extent of the caves. You'll see it here on the other side. There's the back portion, same thing. So this is not natural at all.
Back in, I think, the earliest account that we have, it was in 1673 by Jacques Marquette and Louis Joliet. They were early explorers that went down the Mississippi. Their story is that they came around this corner and saw these bas reliefs up in almost inaccessible heights on the bluffs, and they said it was frightful to look at. I guess it scared them. They said that it had the body of a like a ox or like a calf, the wings of a bat, the head of a man, while humanoid looking. I think they said it kind of had the snout of almost like a cat, like a wild cat. It had the antlers of a deer, and a tail that wrapped around its body, and the end of the tail almost terminated in what looked like a fish's tail, and like a fish fin or whatever. So they also said that there's also accounts that talk about there's still coloring in this bas relief, and when it was wet, or when it rained, or when it was humid, you could see the old coloring. It was reds and blacks and greens would shine through. He says the floor of this cave throughout its whole was a mass of human bones. Skulls and other bones were mingled together in the utmost confusion. To what depth they extended, I wasn't able to decide, but we dug to the depth of 3 or 4 feet in every quarter of the cavern, and still found only bones. The remains of thousands must have been deposited here. How and by whom and for what purpose, it's impossible to conjecture. Also others that went to this cave, 1873, Martin Beam, another author, went there. He said there was piles of Indian bones in the caves. Also backtracking, 1883, William H. Holmes wrote in a report to the Smithsonian Institute, vouched that the artistic skill was greater capacity and loftier skill than any of the Indian pictographs. Indians, obviously Native Americans, whatever, they weren't so PC as we are today. Edmund Flagg, not long afterward, corroborated the earlier accounts of the masses of bones within. So then also P.A. Armstrong in 1887 authored a book called the Piasa. He suggests the artwork was made by the mound builders themselves, whose advanced art and structures far surpassed those of Indian tribes who showed up at a much later date. Also, William McAdams, in his 1887 work entitled Records of the Ancient Races in the Mississippi Valley, also states that the caves were full of bones, human and other. So locals and others knew the cave they called it Bone Cave. Just before the turn of the century, the Mississippi Lime Company cored the area, and once again, for no operational reason whatsoever, they destroyed the original bas-relief on the cliff faces. What they also did was they went through these caves and they scoured the caves. They sterilized these caves. They went through, they basically dug out everything in those, all archaeological remains, artifacts, bones. But you can see in the inside of these caves where they have stacked up, I mean, just tons and tons of earth and backfill to basically prevent anyone from penetrating any further in to certain areas. Also filled up some of the entryways. Now, some of the entryways, it's pretty obvious why they may have done that, just for the sake that where the entryways are, there's a lip, and that lip with this limestone, there are dangers of cave-in just over time and erosion. So, you know, to dissuade anyone from entering there, makes sense. Fill in some of those entryways. What's interesting is once you're inside the cave, if you look, and anyone that wants to go after you see this video, go check it out for yourself. You'll notice that there are machine marks on the top of the caves themselves, and they are machine marks. They're made by a machine. It's not striations in the limestone. It's not any sort of vein, you know, mineral deposits or veins or anything that are running through, naturally occurring in the, you know, in the cave structure itself. These are straight line machine marks. I found them not only on, you know, all throughout the rooftop of the caves, but also on some of the walls. So you can basically deduce from that they are in fact the same machine marks. Why'd they do that, you ask? So it's my contention that they machined debris, large chunks, stone and everything onto the floor of the cave, and that basically would hinder anyone from continued excavation in there. You know, they don't want anyone finding what could still remain after their sterilization procedure. And you'll see this all throughout. They basically dropped all stone down on the cave floor, so, you know, to get through that stuff's going to take heavy machinery. It's going to take a lot of effort. It's not something that someone's just going to go in there with a shovel and have at it, you know. So that was pretty slick, really. There's another segment in there where I'm going to show you in the back part of one of the caves, there's actually like a spring and a water hole that comes up and kind of trickles out into the back side of the cave. That's a point of interest for me. Could be kind of like a neat little time capsule up under there. I don't recommend anyone to just go ahead and drop their scuba gear in there and do it. There's an immediate pinch point. They would need to be breached, and then who knows what's beyond that, but it'd be interesting to look into nevertheless. I believe that this cave was a military checkpoint per se on the Mississippi prior to anyone sailing south to the large city of Cahokia. I think that this was a major checkpoint. Anyone that wasn't welcome or whatever probably was eaten by this thing, and there's precedence for these kind of monsters all throughout history. I mean, there's all sorts of them. There's the Gorgon, the Taurus, there's the bull, the Minotaur. That's what I'm thinking of. You know, there's all these different monsters throughout history that basically lent to the military might of the kings and rulers of those cities and settlements of the day. I know that sounds crazy. It sounds crazy. People don't believe in monsters and all that stuff, but I think a better term, maybe a more appropriate term, is Nephilim. These mixed species. Yeah, I think that this was a monster. I think that these bones were real. I don't think that the thing was called Bone Cave for no reason. We all know that the Smithsonian has been covering up all sorts of archaeological parts, out-of-place artifacts for years. I mean, if you do any sort of superfluous research into this, you'll see that this is a fact. It's like a black hole for evidence. A lot of stuff's just lost. I believe that these caves were created before the flood of Noah. I believe that Cahokia was a pre-flood civilization that was destroyed in that deluge. I believe the remnants are all around us. Way down to the Cahokian civilization. See, we're being told that that civilization was just over there in Alton, Illinois, or even down, across the river here. Sometimes you'll hear it. The old timers will have bits and pieces of it. It's pretty interesting. Even St. Louis here was known as Mound City. So these mounds weren't just over in Illinois and Cahokia. They actually extended across the river, and this whole area was a vast civilization pre-flood. The value of the spot wasn't in the mounds, or I think the value had something to do with the river. I think a lot of the value has to do with the underground and the vast cave systems underneath the city and what they offered and what they still offer today. They were mining taconite. Taconite is pretty useful, especially if you want to make explosives and black powder and stuff like that. So it's a weird life, man. It's a weird reality. And anyone that thinks they have it all figured out, neat little tidy box and all that, you're crazy. You're crazy. Once you start unlearning one thing, it brings you back, and it kind of unravels another thing, and it kind of unravels another thing, and there's some things that people aren't willing to unravel, So, for some, maybe, I don't know, I'm gonna destroy your sweater, pull that string, like those dudes said on that whack-ass song.
I'll be following up in my next video. When I go to the Cahokia Mountains, I'll also introduce you to a dear friend of mine who served in the United States Special Forces. His name's John, and he'll be popping up in future videos for sure, along with a lot of other unique men who have a lot of important things to say. If you like the paintings I did, the one of the Piasa bird and the other of a Meru, who the Americas were actually named after. He was a Nephilim god with a little G. I'll have that painting available as well. These are actually prints. They'll be printed on 150 pound paper with archival inks, and they'll be available for $20 a piece. You can message me at novapublishing.org. It's novapublishing.org. Send me a message there on that platform, and I can arrange to have those prints sent out to you. I want to thank you for watching these videos, and God bless.